Oh, hi. There you are. You know, one of the things my dad used to tell me when I was growing up is that I tended to rush the season on things. Now, I don't know if that's true, but I do know it's never too early to start planning an epic canoeing adventure. One of the best places for an adventure like that is the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness. Now, if you're looking for a little more information on a trip up there, well, you've come to the right place. Let's get started.
The Boundary Waters Canoe Area and Quetico Provincial Park in Canada are two adjacent wilderness areas set on exposed ancient bedrock known as the Canadian Shield and covered with countless lakes and boreal forest. They are located in northern Minnesota and Ontario. Together they total over 2 million acres. Generally, the term Boundary Waters covers both parks. They have human-powered, permit-only travel through lakes and across portages between lakes. There are no roads. In most areas, no motors allowed. Restrictions are in place to protect the area. I've been going up there for many years now. Here's a shot of my first trip. The area itself was home to the Ojibwe people, also known as the Chippewa in the U.S. But by the early 20th century, there were strong calls to protect the Boundary Waters. Canada and the U.S. worked side by side to set aside the property for preservation. And on the U.S. side in 1909, President Teddy Roosevelt signed legislation designating the property as the Superior National Forest. Today, there's a complete wilderness ecosystem with an abundance of wildlife, including apex predators such as the wolf, down to much smaller wildlife such as the Minnesota state bird, the mosquito. The actual state bird, the common loon, which are pretty common in the Boundary Waters. The beauty and splendor of the area are well worth the effort for a trip up there. But to me, planning is key to an enjoyable trip. And when you start planning, there are a number of questions to answer. The first one is, are you going to the Boundary Waters in Minnesota or Quetico in Canada? While neither one is crowded, the Boundary Waters receives approximately 90% of the 300,000 visitors per year. And the reasons for this disparity in visitation are more than just proximity to most visitors. There are also permit restrictions, there are cost considerations, fishing restrictions, and dealing with border crossings. When you total it up, you just need to decide which is the better deal for you. Another consideration, depending on the makeup of your group, is toilet facilities. And no, you're not going to find a bidet, but in the Boundary Waters there are designated campsites with not only a fire grate, but also a Boundary Waters toilet. Notice I say toilet, not a latrine, a toilet. But depending on your group, it could have much more appeal than the toilets in Quetico, which are strictly do-it-yourself affairs. Assuming you have options for your timing, specific interests may push you to one season or another. Here's a sheet that Williams and Hall Outfitters of Ely put together. You can see there's a lot of variables here. For example, if you hate mosquitoes, on this trip I only saw a couple. Assuming fishing's a priority, lake trout are easiest to catch soon after ice out, normally around May the 10th. Walleye also bite well in the spring and early summer. Personally, I tend to go in August or September for the warmer weather and to avoid insects, but I also really enjoy fishing for smallmouth, and when they're fried up fresh, the taste is hard to beat. Another main species is pike, and even a small one can tow the boat around and make for a memorable catch. You also need to consider your group's interest, skill level, and physical condition when deciding on a route and how much to bring. You are in the wilderness, and everything you need and or want has to be carried along in the canoe. And to travel between lakes, everything again has to be carried. Famous Canadian canoeist Bill Mason once said, "Anyone who says they like portaging is either a liar or crazy." Now there's some different theories. Some folks travel light and fast, take just the very minimum they need to get through. Others are more slow. They take it more stuff with them, but their camp is a lot more comfortable. Me, I like to find a loose nephew, basically treat him like a rented mule. Once you get the general idea of what you want to do and when, an outfitter can be a tremendous help with the rest of the planning as well as complete or partial outfitting. After many trips, I completely outfit myself, but still use an outfitter. I use them as a jumping off point to get permits, and most importantly, they have the local knowledge. Each trip starts with a set of maps that have been marked up by an outfitter with a route, some of the best campsites, good fishing areas, portage conditions, possible bear problem areas, items that can actually make or break a trip. Another service provided by outfitters is a motor tow. These are allowed in certain areas around the periphery of the wilderness. They can get you miles ahead into your start into the wilderness. They might even save you a portage. And for the ultimate, there are fly-in, paddle-out trips. But at some point, your group is on a self-sufficient adventure. There are countless options on what to see or do beyond the world-class fishing. Some folks use a trip just to relax and recharge in nature. It is hard to beat an early morning overlooking a quiet lake. The scenery in and of itself is a draw. And if there's interest in cultural history, it's worth the effort to see some of the ancient pictographs scattered throughout the areas. Just relaxing along moving water has a restorative effect. By the way, if you're in an area like this, don't forget you're a long way from help. Don't take risks, portage around it. Wildlife sightings can also be a highlight, though it's not like the zoo or even your typical national park. You need to keep your eyes open. You might get a glimpse on the far shoreline through the morning fog. An eagle may be up in a tree in the distance, or maybe not that far away. Even in the water, there are some critters like these otters that can be curious and approachable. And one of the icons of the northern woods seems to be on every lake. There are bears in the parks, and with proper precautions, you shouldn't have any problems. One thing I have noticed overall about wildlife is the farther north I go, the more wildlife I seem to see. Though if you do see one of these, you've probably gone too far north. Beaver dams can be a blessing or a curse, depending on which side of the dam you're wanting to travel. And there's always other signs that wildlife has been around. Your choice of campsites can make a big difference. This island site on That Man Lake in Quetico was a great one. It's secluded, had great views, open flat areas for the tent that lets a breeze in. A great site will also have a tree where you can hang your food pack. The rule of thumb is 10 feet in the air, 6 feet from the tree trunk. That's the most important thing you can do to keep you and bears safe. Getting your food off the ground is the best way to keep your food unmolested. A convenient spot to load, unload, and launch a canoe is a plus for a campsite. A nice flat kitchen area is also nice. While fishing can be great, don't count on eating fish for many of your meals. Leave some for the next trip, and sometimes they just don't bite. Play it safe, bring backup food. You don't want to have to play Survivor Man and forage for calories. Back at the campsite, it's always nice to have a great view from the fire pit. And a good spot to fish from shore can be a great way to end the day. As you plan your trip, you need to keep an honest opinion of yourself and your group's capabilities. On the plus side, you are totally responsible for your own planning, well-being, safety, and travel. The downside is you are totally responsible for your planning, well-being, safety, and travel. Portages are not always flat, The sky's not always blue. This is wilderness. The weather gets bad. Portages get ugly. When times get difficult, everyone in the group having a positive attitude is paramount. Being in the wilderness means being extra careful to avoid getting lost and extra caution against accidents. See the map in front of the boat here? The batteries don't die on the map. You drop the map on a rock, it's not going to break. I keep the map out whenever I'm traveling just so I can compare it to my surroundings and stay found. While I'm not a huge fan of technology, I do recommend bringing a satellite tracker like this Spot. There's plenty of videos out there that kind of describe it. Beyond the navigation and communication aids, each person going should have a second set of clothes with them, and then depending on the season, at least a fleece and some rain gear. Footwear can vary depending on what you like to use, but have something sturdy to get over the portages with. As far as waterproof bags, gallon Ziplocs have always worked pretty good for me. Each group should have a first aid kit with them, and I believe also a water filter. Some folks drink straight out of the lake, but a filter is easy to use, it's cheap insurance, you're a long way from home, and you've invested a lot in this vacation. Why spend any of it being sick? Generally, if you're getting full outfitting, this whole list of equipment will be provided for you. If you have some of your own equipment, you can bring it and then just go with a partial outfitting, pick and choose what you need. If you do decide to go into Quetico, you do need to bring 2 extra things with you. A fire grate, as there are none provided. This can be something very light. I have a very small steel one that I bring. And also a hand trowel, because you're going to be digging your own toilet. With the right equipment and a little planning, the Boundary Waters and Quetico can both be magical places, day or night. Sunsets can be amazing. The moon rising over the lake you just paddled across can be gorgeous. When there's no moon, you'll see more stars than you can imagine. And if you're lucky, maybe one night during the trip, the sky will start to glow over in the horizon. That's not a Walmart opening up. That'd be the Northern Lights. Now, a trip up to the Boundary Waters does take planning. It takes a willingness to work and be out in nature on our own terms. But a trip to this special place can be life-changing, or at least provide an opportunity to contemplate where you've been and maybe where you're going. Outfitters can be a great source of more information. I've used a few of them. There's a magazine that's just full of helpful advice, and several books have been written on the subject.
If you want more information on a trip up to the Boundary Waters, I've written a book on the subject called Boundary Waters 101. It's available on Amazon in paperback and digital versions. Makes a great fireside read. In the meantime, take care, and I'll keep looking for some open water.